Hey guys, just before we get into the video, please take a minute to check out WWF Vintage. It's a Facebook page dedicated to old school WWF. So whether you're a fan of the Golden Age, New Generation or Attitude Era, this page will take you down memory lane where you can like, comment and share favorite wrestlers and moments from the past. If you're not much into the past, check out Hulk Smash for more on current WWE. Also, if you like me were a fan of Hasbro wrestlers from back in the day, check out Hasbro Maniacs. Not only does the team make custom figures, but custom accessories such as belts, flags and stage sets that weren't even found in the original series. I will put all the links in the description below. For now, enjoy the vid.
This is purely a journalistic point of view. Nothing more has been said in this video other than that of which has been reported by various media sources and backed up with sources seen at the end of this video.
Wrestling in the 1980s saw a massive surge in popularity in the USA. With the expansion of cable television and pay-per-view broadcasting, coupled with the ruthless tenacity of Vince McMahon's business strategy, saw professional wrestling shift from territorial-based promotions to just two nationwide companies. The two granddaddies, if you may, were otherwise known to be both the World Wrestling Federation, owned by Vince McMahon, and World Championship Wrestling, owned by Ted Turner. WCW was largely seen as a sudden rough and ready type of wrestling promotion, where cage matches and other hardcore stipulations were commonly seen. The WWF seemed to be a much more cleaner, more child-friendly promotion and portrayed itself as family entertainment with the rarity of showing either blood or weapons in matches. The characters portrayed in the ring were also catered to children, with each match having the same hero-villain storyline. Sex back in those days had no place in the wrestling world and only became increasingly popular during the late 90s with the boom of the Attitude Era. It was hard to see that under this clean federation there had been an ongoing scandal involving both sex and drugs. It seems that on top of the steroid scandal, the WWF was also encompassed with a sex scandal involving 3 of its employees, 2 of them being very high level. Allegations would start with former Ringboy Tom Cole. For those of you who don't know, Ringboys are those who have been hired to set up the ring and staging in the arena before the event starts. The then announcer at the time, Mel Phillips, was in charge of hiring and supervising them. He was known to select boys that came from broken homes and troubled backgrounds, and it was mentioned by various wrestlers that he also kept a journal of all the boys involved. Cole was an underage minor when he first started with the WWF in 1984. He alleged in 1992 that wrestler turned front office employee of the WWF, Terry Garvin, had attempted to seduce him. Garvin was a former Canadian professional wrestler who won several tag team champions with his kayfabe partner Ronnie Garvin during the late 60s to mid 70s. Preceding his retirement in 1985, he was approached by his good friend Pat Patterson, who offered him a job to be his assistant in the WWF. In 1999, Cole had revealed in a detailed interview with the Wrestling Perspective his account on what happened leading to the events of his allegation. Cole stated in the interview that in addition to being a ring boy, Garvin had given him a job at the WWF parts warehouse and promised him a tryout as a ring announcer. Garvin had told Cole to come to his house to discuss things. Interesting, Cole had mentioned that this was a night where both Garvin's wife and 2 children were away. In fact, Cole also mentioned previously that Garvin had told him that both his wife and children would be at home, but later told him that he wasn't on the night of the incident. Cole mentioned that Garvin had put on a pornographic film and propositioned him for oral sex. Cole rejected his proposition, telling Garvin that he's strictly heterosexual. Consequently, for turning down the offer, Cole was forced out of the home and had to spend a night in a parked van outside. The next day, Garvin did not speak to Cole on the way to the warehouse and was later greeted by Phillips, who stated, "Terry Garvin has decided he doesn't need you to work." Cole replied, "What do you mean? He's going to do it himself or get somebody else to do it." After this, Cole later found out he had no job. Cole had also revealed in the interview that his hiree Mel Phillips was a little bit weird to work with and had a supposed foot fetish. He stated, He used to have this thing where he played with your feet. He would wrestle you for 5 seconds and then he'll pull your shoes off and start playing with your toes. When I was young, I wasn't thinking too much about it. Now I look at it like, wow, that was a foot fetish. There's something wrong here. Once Cole was fired from the WWF, he told his story to Phil Mushnick of the New York Post and was looking to sue the WWF for sexual harassment. The news had spread like wildfire, and as soon as the article was published, Cole was contacted by those working for both Geraldo and The Donahue Show to give his account of what had happened. Geraldo was set to air a program called Now It Can Be Told, Wrestling's Ring of Vice on the WWF sex scandal, whilst on The Donahue Show, they were supposed to have a roundtable discussion regarding the incident, including Vince McMahon. But on the eve of the show, Cole wasn't able to take any more of the media, and Vince McMahon was able to interject before legal proceedings had started. He offered Cole an out-of-court settlement. Cole settled for an alleged sum of $150,000, but from different sources, this amount varies from $50,000 to $70,000. Not only was Cole given money, but interestingly enough, his job was also given back to him. Due to this out-of-court settlement, the interview that involved Tom Cole on the Geraldo Show couldn't be aired. Otherwise, the WWE would interject and sue them. Barely more than a year later, Cole was fired again. He contends he stopped sharing information from his grand jury testimony and allegedly refused to cooperate in Vince's ultimately unsuccessful libel suit against Phil Mushnick and the New York Post. It has also been said that Lee Cole, the brother of Tom Cole, who was also a ring boy, had also alleged sexual harassment in the WWF. But there had been little to no evidence of this, and Lee's credibility had been called into question as he admitted to having a criminal background. It seemed that right after Tom Cole's accusation, other wrestlers, including former wrestler Barry Orton, who is the uncle of Randy Orton, had accused Terry Garvin of sexual harassment. It seems that well before Garvin had been employed by the WWF. For a short time he was actually a booker, and according to Orton, during a road trip, Garvin had requested oral sex on numerous occasions. Orton mentioned that he refused all advances. This would not be his only allegation, however. During Garvin's tenure with the WWF, a number of people claimed that he was using his possession to have sex with younger ring boys. Not only did Barry Orton reveal his account, but he was also joined by former referee Michael Clark and former WWF announcer and TV presenter Murray Hodgson. Clark had been working with the WWF for over 3.5 years before any incident occurred. He claimed that Garvin had asked him whether he could perform oral sex on him. In exchange, Garvin said that he would get him booked as a referee throughout Canada and also get him a green card so that he could work in the US, and offered him an additional $500. Clark said that when he refused, his WWF career was over. His allegations went so far as to naming all 3 accusers, including longtime WWF employee and personal friend of McMahon's, Pat Patterson. He mentioned collectively they were called the Cream Team, a spin on the WWF Tag Team Champions, who were called the Dream Team. Hodgson, on the other hand, was a former disc jockey based out of Detroit and was hired after a year-long search as a WWF announcer. He too made a similar allegation to Clark's, in that he too was propositioned by not only Garvin but Pat Patterson also. He claimed that when he refused to follow through with Patterson's requests, 2 weeks later he was fired. Since both Hodgson and McMahon were able to attend the Donahue Show, they were able to interact with each other. Vince had explained to the public that Murray was primarily fired because he wasn't able to transition from radio to television. But it seemed that Murray was very confident in what he was saying and seemingly gave a good impression that he transitioned very well. In fact, he mentioned receiving a letter from the WWF that his progress was very good and that he had a 2-year contract. McMahon, however, retorted and said that he was only there on a trial basis, and there is a clause in his contract which states that it can be terminated at any time due to poor performance. He also mentioned that Hodgson waited 6 months before bringing the allegations to light. The show quite clearly made it seem that McMahon was aware of what was happening in his empire. Hodgson spoke of his meeting with McMahon, which occurred after he was fired, when he said that he brought up the exchange with Patterson at the Worcester Centrum, and McMahon brushed him off. During this time, Vince must have been under immense pressure, with both the steroid trial looming over him and allegations brought to him against his high-level employees. Vince himself would be placed back into the spotlight once again, with allegations from WWF's first female referee, Rita Chatterton, with a sexual assault claim. Chatterton revealed on the Geraldo's show that Vince had invited her into his limousine and promised her the world. He promised her a $500,000 income and being on the cover of Time magazine. This, however, would be in exchange for doing sexual favors. She claimed that McMahon had physically forced sexual intercourse on her in 1986, and the reason for making this allegation 6 years later was due to the health of her parents, who had now passed away, with her father recently passing only weeks before the show had aired. It should be mentioned also that Chatterton passed a lie detector 2 weeks before the show and corroborated her story with Joe Stewart, who was a limo driver. Both Vince and his wife Linda McMahon ultimately filed suit against Chatterton for slander, and it was never determined whether Chatterton's allegations were legitimate, as it never reached court. As a result of these allegations, both Garvin and Patterson had all resigned from the company. Mel Phillips, however, had been suspended. Not long after, however, it seemed that Patterson had been brought back into the WWF and still to this day continues to work for the company. Garvin was never reinstated and ultimately passed away in 1998. Mel Phillips was also never reinstated and his whereabouts are currently unknown. As for Chatterton, she also seems to have disappeared into history. There have been so many scandals in WWF history that this one usually gets swept under the rug. But this scandal might have been bigger if anything else if proven true. McMahon can't be chastised in this instance since it's impossible to say what, if anything, had happened. And remember, it was never proven that any of these allegations were true, as Vince McMahon never went to trial and these allegations just fizzled out. So with this information, what would you draw up from this? Would you believe the victims, or could these allegations be false in order to gain money or revenge from the WWF for their failed employment and overall lack of success in the business? Leave in the comments below on what you think. And as ever, thank you for watching, check out my other videos, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.